their flintlock blasters firing energy bolts that could punch through the toughest redcoat armor. With each pull of the trigger, a burst of light and smoke, a fusion of the old and the new. And who could forget Thomas Jefferson, the Jedi Knight who penned the Declaration of Independence with one hand while wielding his lightsaber with the other? It was he who gave voice to the rebellion, declaring that all men are created equal, with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Or, in this case, the right to take down a few Sith Lords. The final battle came at Yorktown, where the forces of light and dark met in a cataclysmic struggle. Washington and Cornwallis, Jedi and Sith, fought with the full might of the Force behind them. Flintlock blasters cracked through the air like thunder, while lightsabers sliced through the gloom, each swing a testament to the fight for freedom. And when the dust settled, it was the colonial Jedi who stood victorious. Cornwallis defeated, surrendered, and the force of liberty triumphed over tyranny. The Sith were driven back across the sea and a new hope was born, a republic where the force of freedom would reign supreme. But the story does not end there. Knowing that the dark side could rise again, the Founding Fathers in their final moments channeled all their power, their wisdom, and their hope for the future into one single powerful crystal, a crystal of liberty. They knew that one day the force of liberty would need a new champion, someone worthy to wield this ancient power and restore balance when the force of freedom was once again threatened. For generations, the crystal lay hidden, its power waiting for the right moment, the right person to awaken it. And then, one fateful day, it was discovered by a man named Austin Peterson, a libertarian, a modern-day freedom fighter who would fulfill the destiny set in motion centuries before. The crystal called to him, and with it, Austin took up the mantle of the colonial Jedi, determined to bring balance back to the force of liberty in the United States. Through his show, the Wake Up America show, Austin Peterson became the voice of resistance, the spark of rebellion against the creeping darkness of tyranny. With the power of the Founding Fathers' crystal, he fights not with lightsabers or blasters, but with the force of truth, reason, and unwavering dedication to the principles of liberty. So remember, young Padawan, the fight for freedom is never easy, but with courage, unity, and a little bit of force on your side, even the darkest Sith can be vanquished. May the force of freedom be with you, always. In a galaxy not so far away, but a couple of centuries ago, a great struggle unfolded. A time of turmoil where the force of freedom clashed against the oppressive grip of tyranny. This is the story of the Founding Fathers, the brave Jedi of the colonies, who dared to defy the dark side of the Redcoat Sith. Master George Washington, leader of the colonial Jedi, was no ordinary soldier. With a flintlock blaster in one hand, capable of delivering precise shots with the power of 1,000 musket balls, and a lightsaber forged from the ancient Liberty crystals, Washington was the beacon of hope in the darkness that covered the 13 colonies. And then there was Benjamin Franklin, the Yoda of the Revolution. Wise, cunning, and always a few steps ahead, Franklin's mind was sharper than his lightsaber, which he personally modified to discharge bolts of lightning, perfect for frying any redcoat Sith foolish enough to cross his path. But the colonial Jedi were not without opposition. The Redcoat Sith, led by the Dark Lord Cornwallis, had crossed the Atlantic, bringing with them the dark side of taxation without representation. Their red lightsabers blazed like the very flames of oppression, ready to extinguish the light of liberty forever. The battles were fierce, and the stakes higher than the price of tea in Boston Harbor. At Bunker Hill, the colonial Jedi held their ground, their flintlock blasters firing energy bolts that could punch through the toughest redcoat armor. With each pull of the trigger, a burst of light.
Boy, good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. It's another beautiful morning here, streaming live from Jefferson City, Missouri. Good morning, everyone. How you doing? How are you guys all so good looking when you roll right out of bed in the first thing in the morning? Man, I don't know how you do it. It takes a lot of hair and makeup to get me ready for the Wake Up America show this early. Just kidding. I got to give a special shout out this morning to Nelson, our buddy Nelson Otto, who's been a viewer of the Wake Up America show since we started. And he has started volunteering this week to and in subsequent weeks to help set up the Wake Up America show's studio. There is a lot of wires and work that goes into that. And it's really stressful for me to be doing that kind of stuff all by myself and then set up all the software and do all the show prep. completely by myself. So Nelson lives right here in Jefferson City, Missouri as well. I got to say thank you, Nelson. Let's give him a round of applause. What's happening, Grizz Cheese? How you doing, Floby, Mr. Tenderson, Barney Styles, Quest Fanning? It's nice to have all of our friends hanging out with us live this morning. Did you click the like button yet? Please help the show grow. And we also want to say, if it's your first time here today, you should follow the channel as well. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. All right, the sin of Zyn. Austin, why is the top story today about nicotine and tobacco? Well, it's sometimes the other big stories that I could see today. I mean, you could talk about Sean Diddy Combs, and actually today's bonus content is about Puff Daddy Combs this morning. I think you're actually going to like it. It's going to surprise you, the angle that we take on the Puffy Combs story. So if you want to see that mini documentary about Sean P. Diddy Combs, then you've got to unlock the bonus content. If we hit a $60 Rumble Rant donation level by the end of the show, then that will unlock the bonus content. And you get to watch that instead of our awesome commercials as well. But purchases at forlibertyshop.com also count. So go buy yourself a really nice golf polo or perhaps a couple of boxes of Founding Flavors coffee this morning at forlibertyshop.com. And that also goes to unlock the bonus content. Okay? Okay. Thanks for the follow, AP for Liberty Shop. Well, it's about time. So we're going to be talking this morning about the sin of Zyn. Tucker Carlson used to say that to use Zyn was no sin, but now that he's feuding with the manufacturer of Zyn, Philip Morris, the tobacco company, he is apparently now interested in potentially starting his own tobacco brand. And I have no idea if a venture like that would be extremely difficult. I can imagine that the regulations to start a new tobacco company might be different. Probably what he'll do is find a tobacco company that exists and then slap his name on it. It's the easiest thing to do, right? Which we have the story for you today, and we'll share that news with you here in a little bit. Donald Trump goes to New York, which is rather confusing. He seems to have some confidence that he could win New York, which I don't know if that is the case. Be very skeptical about something like that. Karl Rove wrote in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that Donald Trump seems to think he has all the time in the world. And while I don't want to ever agree with Karl Rove if I have to, I think I probably have to agree with Karl Rove today. What are you doing in New York there, Donald Trump? I don't think that's necessarily a good state for you to be spending time or money in. Just my opinion. Well, I know. I lost my presidential election, but Trump lost one too. It was stolen. He's still the president of the United States of America, and he's giving commands from his Führer bunker somewhere else, right? I don't know. Java morning, yes. It's nice to have all of our friends here joining us live today. Of course, I've got a million billion clips. The Babylon Bee dropped a video that might be illegal in California right now. I'm not quite sure but about Gavin Newsom, and I'm pretty sure that it's 100% completely and totally accurate, and not in any way, shape, or form did they use AI to create this video. So take a listen.
Hi, I'm Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. This is a message for the people of America, given in my authentically recorded, non-AI voice. Thanks to my leadership over the last several years, California has become a world leader in extremist left-wing governance. My policies were so effective that almost 1 million people are now fleeing the state every year. We even ran out of U-Hauls. During the COVID pandemic, I locked everyone in their homes and shut down businesses for months. Not the French Laundry, though. That's my favorite restaurant. Last year, I cleaned up the dangerous, messy streets of San Francisco, because Chinese Communist President Xi was coming, and I really wanted to impress him. He's my boss, after all. This year, I signed legislation that allows me to take custody of your kid if you refuse to give him artificial hormones and chop off his genitals. Because if you don't do that, you're a bigot, and bigots shouldn't be allowed to have kids. I've also led the way in green energy by banning all cars that don't run on electricity. Then I banned almost all the electricity. This is smart leadership. On my watch, the cost of living and homelessness have skyrocketed, Schools are failing, drug dealers and human traffickers are pouring across the border, and poop has covered the sidewalks of San Francisco. This is the positive, joyful vision we offer as Democrats. That's why I'm enthusiastically endorsing Kamala Harris for president in 2024. She'll do to the country everything I did in California. Anyway, I'm California Governor Gavin Newsom, and I approve this 100% real message, which is a recording of my voice without the assistance of any AI whatsoever. This isn't a deep fake, and you can rest assured that it isn't, because I just signed an unconstitutional law outlawing deep fakes. No one would dare violate it. Thank you, and science bless America. Hi, I'm Gavin Newsom.
Oh, that is too damn good. Good morning to Joey Marv from Boston this morning. It's nice to see. I always love whenever we get a new name or a face out there hanging out in the chat, dropping their greetings. It's good to meet you, Joey. My brother lives up there in Boston, Watertown. Maybe you guys will run into each other sometime on the streets. If you are just tuning into the Wake Up America show live right now, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. Do click that like button and follow the channel if it is your first time here. And if you'd like to communicate with me, you can send me a text at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open, and you can send me a text at 573-319-1586. The text lines are open night or day, and I'd love to hear from you if you've got ideas for guests, or if there is breaking news that you'd like me to cover, you can do so again at 573-319-1586. That is the text line, and you can text it even when the show is not live, and I'd love to hear from you, okay? Unearthed footage of Kamala Harris reveals the extent of her anti-gun radicalism. Take a listen.
Responsible behaviors among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Have you heard from
responsible behaviors?
Whoa, what? Excuse me? Squeeze me?
Please, no!
Just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible. Yes, that's exactly what that means, Kamala Harris. And of course, there she is standing there with Gavin Newsom. That's exactly what that means. The Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment protect our ability, protect us from your power to do that without a warrant, actually. Yes, just because you possess legally, you know, they should even use the word legally, right? This is a person who was a prosecuting attorney. This is a lawyer. This is a person who should understand the law. The thing is, though, is that the left, they may or may not understand the law, but it doesn't matter because they're going to do whatever the hell they want anyway. And this quote is a perfect sign of it.
Among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Have you heard from
So what are you going to do? Just walk into people's homes? Just walk into people's homes and just inspect, make sure that they're being responsible? I'll tell you a story I had with a completely unloaded firearm the other day. So I was mounting one of my firearms in my office, and man, did I ever take a spill. And that big, heavy gun just came right down on the back of my head and stuff. I was just so embarrassed. So maybe maybe Kamala needs to come in here and Kamala, if you could send a police officer, please, or a Fed to help me to mount my firearm above my door. It's a two-person job. You know what I'm saying? You got a heavy gun and you're... And I promptly took it out and chucked it into the river, and it's at the bottom of the river these days. How old is this clip? Frickety? I honestly do not have any idea. I'm laughing at all of the memes that are coming out of the Middle East with the pagers that are exploding on the terrorists. They're just too juicy. It doesn't matter what you think about foreign policy. The fact that Jews are blowing the dicks off of terrorists in the Middle East is just objectively funny. It's a war crime. Like, shut up. Here is a meme from Michael Malice. What do they have in common, Hezbollah and white dudes for Harris? Being dickless. Thank you, Michael Malice. Arab singers and citizens have started creating songs and music videos with the hashtag pager, celebrating Israel's successful targeting of Hezbollah terrorists. The only people who support these monsters are college students in the West. Here's the song, the new hit song, Pager, Pager, da-da-ga-da-da-ga-da-ga-da.
وتجبرني ادور عنك يا عمري ترى ادوخني البيجر وتدخل رقمك السر ترى ادوخني البيجر تبجرني وتدخل رقمك السر ترى ادوخني البيجر
Pager, pager, goddamn gender reassignment free of charge.
وانا عيني على البيجر يعاتبني يقول محتار في امرك وانا عيني على البيجر وتتعبني وانا ادور ورك واجري ترى ادوخني البيجر.
I gotta give it up to Muhammad there. That was actually kind of a catchy little song. Nothing, however, beats this bop from this year. I'm Austin Peterson, and I approve that message. Yes, ya voy a votar por Donald Trump. Chris Cuomo, famous lefty Democrat from New York, he must be just struggling for relevance these days after he got fired from CNN for inappropriate behavior with his brother, and allegedly some things he may have done with the ladies. But it sounds like he might be getting MAGA red-pilled. I kid you not. Lefty Democrat, former CNN anchor, Chris Cuomo, now starting to look like he may be becoming based and red-pilled. Maybe we shouldn't fall for it because he's obviously taking advantage of us in order to take advantage of the movement and, use us for views and for money. But no, I'm sure his conversion is complete and total, and that we should trust him with everything and give him not only should we have him come over, but we should do what we did with that one OnlyFans chick who converted to Christianity, but immediately give them a major platform and make them one of the leaders of our movement immediately, despite the simple fact that they're a celebrity and maybe they've learned their lessons, maybe they haven't, but it doesn't matter because it's all a cash grab anyway.
That's why I reached out to Trump. I wanted to just say, listen, I'm really sorry that this is going on and it's being dealt with this way. Not because I'm in favor of his politics or what he says. I criticize him all the time. That's my job, and he deserves it. But he doesn't deserve this. A guy pointing an AK-47 at him while he's playing golf?
I've seen grifts like these where this happens to a lot of people. So Candace Owens, for example, remember she used to be a lefty Democrat, and she created doxing websites to dox conservatives, and the left didn't want anything to do with her. Then she became a black Republican, and then she's the hugest thing in the world because it's the grifting is much stronger over on the other side. If you can say you were this before and you come over, Chris Cuomo has been driven from polite society, the leftist polite society. They're not very polite, I'll be honest. But he's been driven from the higher society, the higher echelons of leftist society. And now he's looking around and saying, well, what's the next biggest audience that I could pander to in order to get as much attention as possible? And I've seen this happen before. I've worked in the alternative media and the mainstream media for 2 decades now, and I can say comfortably that this smells like the grift. This is how the grift begins, and then all of a sudden they're going to start saying all the things that you want to hear in order to get the lucrative speaking convention gigs and the television things and maybe a spot in the Trump administration. And it's going to happen. People are going to forgive him. People are pretty damn dumb for the most part, right? They're gonna be like, oh, he's definitely one of us. He's definitely not taking advantage of us in any way, shape, or form. We should make the pastor of our local church.
And we take solace in the fact that the guy didn't get any rounds off. If I had been through what that guy's been through in the last 2 months, you would not know where I am. You would never see me on TV again. No way I would do that. I don't know how he does it. He's got kids, they're adults, but he's got grandkids. He's got a wife. People giving crap to Melania Trump, worrying about whether or not there was a plot around his husband. How could she not? People mock her. And then her husband has a guy pointed with an AK-47. Where are those people apologizing? That's what it's time for. We are playing a dangerous game with ourselves. He is not a despot in waiting. Okay? I don't buy it. You gotta care when somebody tries to kill somebody.
Does anybody believe Chris Cuomo?
Oh, God!
No. Does anybody remember COVID-19 and the pandemic?
No!
Remember when we were all like new Nuremberg trials for the people who were COVID tyrants during the pandemic? Do we give them no, I guess that's over, right? The Nuremberg trials are all over, right? People are so fickle. All right, this is why Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that it is better to be feared than it is to be loved. All right, it's better to be feared than it is to be loved because love is such a fickle emotion. Fear, that'll keep people motivated. That'll keep people going. And, when you're a propagandist and you traffic in fear, right, you're going to naturally just play on people's emotions and get a larger crowd than the people. We don't like to listen to the people who are telling you that things are actually improving. Things are getting a little bit better, actually. If you look at society and culture on the long tail, things tend to be improving. Now, in terms of things improving in the short term, I have to say Kamala Harris and Tim Walz probably owe Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, a huge thank you. And maybe this new rate cut, the Federal Reserve's interest rate cut, could be considered an in-kind donation to the Kamala Harris-Tim Walz campaign. You know what I mean? Because that was definitely a gift. But you know who's a gift to society? Kamala Harris. And she wants to remind us about what a gift she is to society and how unique and what a role model she is. Take a listen.
You've had. I was the first person to be a woman Attorney General of California. I was the first woman to be elected District Attorney of San Francisco. I was the first person of color to be elected Attorney General of California. Whatever. First. Welcome to the Role Model Club. It's tough. Being a part of the Role Model Club means being in a room where sometimes you may be the only person who has had the experiences you've had. I was the first person to be a woman.
It's tough being a role model, Kamala.
I can first.
And she made a good point when she said,
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Kamala's wisdom knows no bounds when she says things like,
I grew up understanding the children of the community are the children of the community.
You know what I mean? Gosh, wow. There it is. Did you ever stop to think about that? The fact that the children of the community are the children of the community? Click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 573-319-1586 is the text line. And I'd love to hear what's going on in your mind. If you haven't already, click the like button, of course, and we'd love to hear from you in the comments section in rumble.com/AP for Liberty. If today is your first time watching the Wake Up America show, just an FYI, It's Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a 5-day-a-week, 2-hour live show. Tell your friends about it. Come and join us on the regs. We'd love to have you be a regular guest here with us on the Wake Up America show. You are always going to be up to date with what's happening in the world. You'll be moving and shaking at the water cooler, and you'll know all the latest juicy trends and gossips. Everybody's talking about Iran potentially hacking into the Donald Trump campaign, and it is a big story. And the thing is why is Austin not talking about it? Typically, if there's a big story like that and I'm not covering it, it's because I think that there's probably another show that might have better insight and might be able to cover a topic like that and do that better than I can. But I don't know that there are people who will be able to do the Tucker Carlson spat with Zin story better than I can. Are you ready for the big story today? We do have two guests on Thursday coming up at 8 o'clock. We're going to speak to Camelia Peterson about the looming ban of TikTok here in the United States. And then at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, we're going to speak to Daniela Pensack about Melania Trump's nude photographs, who felt that she had been bullied so much that she felt compelled to issue a statement about her nude photographs from her past. We're going to speak to Daniela Pensack about that again at 8:30 a.m. Central Time on a Thursday. We're talking about nudes, and we're having Beautiful Ladies of Liberty, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy the show, right? JRG 777. Hikaru K and Trump 1. Nice to see you guys over there on YouTube as well. And don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel on YouTube if today's your first time over there. Great. Okay. Tucker Carlson last year made an off-color remark about his favorite nicotine pouch brand, Zyn. Now, the response that Zyn made to Tucker Carlson irked him so much that he's actually decided to go into the tobacco business. Carlson plans to introduce a competing nicotine pouch brand called ALP, like ALP, almost like Alpine, right? In an interview, Carlson said he'd concluded that Zyn was a brand for women and liberals. Oh my God. Think about all of the Tucker Carlson fans who had pouches of Zyn in their mouth at that point when they read that, and they must have immediately it's like that scene in the movie Ace Ventura when all the police officers at the end of the movie realized that they had made out with the transgender Dan Marino, laces out Dan. What was the name of the transgender person that everybody made out with? Finkel and Einhorn. Finkel is Einhorn. They're all like, and he's plunging his face, and everybody's like throwing up. That film was transphobic before transphobic was a thing. I wonder if Jim Carrey regrets that. Maybe he said something like that on camera at some point. Because Will Ferrell's out doing the transgender tour these days. I don't know if you saw this, but I actually have a clip of Will Ferrell talking about trans youth, and it's already pretty. Yeah, it's already pretty cringe. Joey Marv with the Rumble logo over there. Yes, we are Rumble stans, FYI. Until recently, Zyn has been a cause celeb of the right and a flashpoint in the culture war fight over whether nicotine pouches are a boon for public health or a threat to children. I'll tell you that there's a lot of people already talking about how they're a threat to children. When I read USA Today, which is one of the biggest leftist propaganda rags in the country, they were saying that Tucker Carlson was promoting tobacco to YouTube watching minors, right? That's how they introduced the article, because they always have to paint their opponents in the most negative, worst possible light while pretending to be an unbiased journalist just reporting on the news, right? USA Today is one of the biggest. That USA Today, Reuters, the Associated Press, NBC News, ABC News, MSNBC, all lying leftist propaganda that are devoted to electing Democrats and to supporting globalism and international socialism. I prefer international socialism to globalism, because if you ever hang around with economists, it's confusing, because when people talk about globalization, I'm like, oh, this is a good thing. This is libertarian. This means less barriers to trade. But then when they talk about globalism, I know they're talking about big government. They're talking about international socialism. So I think we ought to just stop calling it globalism, because like international free trade is a good thing, right? But globalization is good, but globalism, the international government is bad. I mean, do you feel me? What do you think about that? Quest Fanning over on the chat donated the first dollar towards the $60 goal to unlock the bonus content. Thank you. Lamborghini was a manufacturer of farm equipment and didn't make a car till Ferrari irked him. While Ferrari makes excellent race cars, it could be argued its road cars sucked till it got competition. That's interesting. Very good. Semi on topic. Robbie Thurman says, I've made friends with about 5 trans people on Twitter. I think that's kind of cool. Now, Robbie, when I think that you made friends with about 5 trans people on Twitter, I'm thinking that you're talking about people who work on transmissions. Is that the case? The about face by Zin's biggest booster, Tucker Carlson, once again thrusts the market-leading nicotine patch into the culture wars, but this time on the other side. You do not want to get on the other side of a conservative culture war. It's frustrating that Mr. Carlson wants to turn Zin into a political football to promote his own business venture, they say, right? Philip Morris spokesman said, he says that the brand's users include Democrats and Republicans and has bipartisan support in Washington. Isn't this the weirdest story ever? Pink Amy, who appears to be joining us for the first time. Nice to see you. So kids can change their gender, no questions, but they can't use tobacco products. Well, I thought kids can make their own decisions. Thank you, Pink Amy. They should also be allowed to get tattoos. Right? Why not? Right? How far does it go? And welcome to the show, Pink Amy. It's nice to see you here. We hope you'll become a regular guest and hang out with us more. Tucker Carlson's entry into the nicotine pouch market raises regulatory questions. This was what I was concerned about. Neil Patel, that's the Tucker Carlson Network co-founder, said that ALP, that's their brand, would comply with federal regulations, but declined to say whether the brand had sought clearance from the FDA. Before introducing a new tobacco mark to the U.S., a company must submit a marketing application to the FDA and receive authorization. The agency says it can discuss potential or pending applications. Yeah, so Tucker might get himself into a lot of hot water with this from a legal perspective, just getting sued by the federal government and annoying him. I mean, he may win in the end, and maybe we'll get more freedom from it if he wins. But the problem is that now, whenever he talks about tobacco, it could be considered an advertisement for tobacco, and how you can advertise tobacco is extremely highly regulated. I actually don't know if new tobacco regulations have been created for podcasts. So, for example, if I were to run an ad for Tucker Carlson's new tobacco here on my show, in theory, I should have to comply with some federal regulation somewhere, somehow, right? You can't run billboards or magazine ads or things like that for tobacco or alcohol in certain circumstances or in certain magazines. So it's an interesting problem, a challenge that Tucker Carlson finds himself in here from a regulatory standpoint, the law of advertising a new tobacco product, because that's really what they want to probably, if they're going to nail Tucker Carlson, they might nail him on that. Not that he can't start a tobacco brand and do it. And I'm sure that there are tons of regulatory hurdles just to actually starting manufacturing and then getting the product to consumers. And it's all of those regulations that leads to the kind of consolidation that we have right now with Philip Morris owning basically everything, because nobody else can comply with the regulations. And Philip Morris wants those regulations because they don't want competition from these other upstart guys. Pink Amy, thanks for reading my comment. You're welcome. Hope you'll come back. It's nice to meet new friends. John Knox says, is Tucker setting up an actual tobacco business or a medical patch to help people get off nicotine? No, it is a new tobacco business, from my understanding. Now, Carlson, until recently, had styled himself as an unofficial spokesman for Zyn. He talked up the brand on his podcast appearances. He did a podcast with comedian Theo Vaughn and said the truth is Zyn is a powerful work enhancer and also a male enhancer, if you know what I mean. Now, I see over in the chat, Floby Tenderson says that nicotine boosts testosterone. Low T is a huge problem with males under 30. I don't know if we should solve the problem of soy boys by getting them all addicted to nicotine, guys. But you know what? In the interest of capitalism, of heartless, godless capitalism, Thank you to Joni Rankin, who says, roll your own, and donated $5 into the pot as well. Blue Trike says, let me bless you with something.
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
What?
Just remember, guys, we are working towards that bonus content, and we do not want to have a show where we don't unlock the bonus content because we'll all be sad.
Oh, God.
Stephanie and I will be running around at home screaming with our heads cut off saying, oh my God, we're failures. We're not going to be able to feed our beautiful little redheaded baby Hazel. She's going to starve to death. She's not going to have enough milk in her bottle, and we're going to die destitute because we didn't unlock the bonus content. You know what I mean?
How dare you?
So get those Rumble Rant donations in today. Help to feed a beautiful baby, a little redheaded baby, and help us to grow our new show. I'm so excited, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but the For Liberty Network that some of you have been following, the 2 new shows that I'm going to be producing, that will be new live shows at different times of the day. Damn, it's starting to look good. I saw Liberty Tonight, the new promos, not promos, but just the tests that we're doing for the new Liberty Tonight show yesterday, and the guys were hilarious. It looks good. It sounds good. It's going to be a brand new weekly comedy talk show for you guys to enjoy. If you're a Liberty lover, Liberty Tonight coming soon. It might be launching, I'm hoping before the election, but fingers crossed. Until everything is perfect, we're not going to launch just yet. And then Daniela Pensack, who's going to have her own show, she's joining us later today, 8:30 a.m. Central, and she's going to have Culturama, which she's got all of her brand new equipment. She should be looking beautiful today. She normally is beautiful, but even more so with the new equipment that we've been able to send her. And it's because of your Rumble Rant donations and the purchases that you've made at forlibertyshop.com that I was able to reinvest the money that we have made from the show back into the business to grow with 2 new shows coming this fall to the For Liberty Network. It's not just going to be the Wake Up America show anymore. I'm fine with sharing the stage and the spotlight. I know not a lot of people in my position are, but I'm happy to do so in the defense and service of our cause and our ideals. Glad to have all of our friends here with us today. Please do click that like button if you haven't, and subscribe to the channel by clicking follow if you haven't yet. Carlson's representatives apparently had pitched Philip Morris on forming a partnership with the brand, but the tobacco company declined, and they do that in itself should not be considered a slight necessarily, because Tucker Carlson really is a creature of the right, and there's nothing on the left about Tucker Carlson other than a few perhaps economic positions which would be too in the weeds to discuss right here, but everybody has something that they may agree with a Democrat or two about. But Philip Morris declines it, and probably a wise business decision in the sense that it's not good for them to be seen as taking sides or partisan. Like, if you've ever owned a business or tried to be in sales, like if you own a hardware store, you don't want it to be the Democrat hardware store, right? Or the Republican hardware store. Some people do make good money in niches when they cater to one side or another, but something like a tobacco brand, you really want to have something like that cover the widest audience possible. For example, though, my show, the Founding Flavors coffee that I sell, it's all marketed very anti-woke, very pro-right. I mean, it's sad, and somebody had to say this to me, and I knew it was just instinctually that it was true, but when they said it out loud, it just really reminded me of how sad things are in our country. Because he said, just by having a coffee brand, Austin, at forlibertyshop.com, that is based around the founding fathers, that in itself is considered to be right wing. It's sad, but the having a belief in the Constitution and the founding fathers is something it's commonly accepted as at least slightly right wing. You know what I mean? And it's not to say, when I go to Mount Vernon in Virginia and I visit Washington's archives, or I go to Monticello, Thomas Jefferson, are there Democrats who are working there at the president's museums? Sure. And doing research and archiving documents. And recently they found a bunch of pickled cherries, I think, underneath George Washington's porch that they dug up. And I'm sure that some of those researchers were Democratic. But overall, if you have an interest in or a reverence for the founding fathers, that's vaguely right wing. And a lot of things changed with the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. The culture on the left has shifted as decidedly anti-American. You will see some pockets of woke anti-American sentiment on the right as well, but that's another conversation for another time. But when it comes to something like a tobacco brand, you typically want to have the widest net possible. However, Tucker Carlson may be willing to do what I'm doing with my coffee brand, with his tobacco brand, and provide it to his audience and to monetize his audience in that way, knowing that people who know what the brand is aren't going to buy it at a gas station if it makes it there. And a lot of cronyism will go into preventing Tucker Carlson from getting them there, not just for ideological reasons, but for capitalistic reasons as well. The tobacco company, Philip Morris, says that while we may understand that these may be Mr. Carlson's views or made in jest, these statements lack a scientific foundation. So Philip Morris is disagreeing with Tucker Carlson's comments about how Zyn is a powerful work enhancer and also a male enhancer, if you know what I mean. So the idea that tobacco boosts your testosterone or that it, is a male enhancer in any way might make you a little bit more libidinous towards your wife or girlfriend than or boyfriend, then Zyn felt the need to step in and correct him and suggest that the science. Now, if anybody knows if that's true, I would guess the scientists working at Philip Morris would know something like that. Maybe they know it's true and they're propagandizing us and maybe they don't like Tucker Carlson. They don't want to be associated with him in any way. But they felt the need to fact check him. Now, if they were to make that kind of a claim, the government would come after them. They would be fact checked and this would be, over and shut. Philip Morris might get sued for making a statement like that. But maybe a bad idea to fact check Tucker Carlson. Maybe it didn't need to be done in such a way. Probably a mistake for them to step into the culture wars in that way and say, whenever somebody says according to science or something like that, typically these days, sadly, it doesn't just sound more like bullshit than anything else. I mean, when everybody says the science says, as a great believer in science, I have to say, when somebody says science says, I'm like, this is probably bullshit. You know what I mean? Or it's, probably going to be some.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
You know what I mean? Commie gobbledygook. Communism is actually scientifically proven. Progressives do say that, by the way. If you look up the definition of progressivism, it's, the general definition of progressivism is someone who wants to order society according to scientific principles. And so for them, science really is their cult. It really is their religion, the left's religion. And I say that as a non-religious person, but the left has replaced the idea of God with government. So whenever anybody says the science, or here's what the science says, or the science says, like, there better be some numbers and some math and some statistics and some data, right? Not just some anecdotal evidence or the science says that the reason why my grandpa's knee is all twitchy before the storm is because of the blah, 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 blah. It's like there better be some actual science there. But usually whenever somebody says the science, it's like the Dr. Fauci style of science, right? I am the science, right? It's a way to shut you up. And I think that people probably took it that way when Philip Morris corrected Tucker Carlson about the science. They may be right about the science. But Philip Morris may be right in that tobacco doesn't necessarily make you more horny. Well, unless it's wacky tobacco, in which case can confirm, yes, can make you more libidinous towards your wife or girlfriend. Philip Morris says it doesn't donate to presidential candidates, but Tucker Carlson accused them of such, saying they have nothing in common with their consumers. He said, I just thought that there should be a product that reflects the style, the aesthetic, the culture, the beliefs of the people who use it. Yeah, that's what I felt when I started my Founding Flavors coffee, right? You're right. Have you seen the style and aesthetic the Founding Flavors coffee? If not, you got to check it out over at forlibertyshop.com. I highly recommend, if you're a big caffeine freak, either Jeffersonian Java or Madisonian Mornings. If you like a good medium roast that's more balanced between the two types of roasts, dark and light, the medium roast Franklin's Electric Elixir is unbelievably delicious. I'm not kidding. It's not just like, oh, Austin, you're just chilling, you're chilling. I drink my coffee every day. Our coffee is absolutely delicious. If you go to forlibertyshop.com, you will see our collection of delicious coffee. We also, by popular demand, people demanded the designs for our founding flavors boxes, which are gorgeous, on mugs. So we went ahead and put them on mugs as well in the founding flavors collection. So if you're a dark roast fan, Adams's Patriotic Perk is a good way to go. And again, all of these purchases go to help unlock the bonus content like someone just did. I believe someone went over to forlibertyshop.com, and yes, they did. It's our lovely Cecilia, our beautiful, gorgeous Cecilia bought a box of Jeffersonian Java and Washington's Revolutionary Roast, which puts us very close to the bonus content. Thank you, Cecilia. Donald Trump, in a campaign stop in New York, of all places, Long Island, had this to say.
We can do all of this and more, but patriotic New Yorkers must get your asses out to vote.
What?
Harry, get up, Harry. Harry, get your fat ass out of the couch. You're going to vote for Trump today, Harry. Get up.
No, you got to understand. These are New Yorkers that they're talking about. So, I mean, perfectly understandable for him to talk about this one. I laughed when Donald Trump, while he was in New York, made a quick stop over on the Gutfeld show on Fox News and had this to say about himself.
You know, they said I'm the GOAT in debates because I had a lot of debates and I became president. And the GOAT means greatest of all time. You know, they said...
Thank you, Mr. President. We know. Thanks for defining it. Kat Timpth, our resident libertarian over on Fox News, asked Trump the real questions about Area 51 and aliens. Aliens! On Fox News, no one can hear you scream.
Like Paramount.
Can I please ask a question just because I'm never going to be allowed in a room with the president again?
Sure.
Are there aliens in Area 51?
You know, I'll tell you, it's a funny thing because I think that might be a question that I get more than any question. It is the craziest thing. So we have that so-called area. They consider it like a sacred area. And I will say this. I don't think I'm a believer, but I've interviewed pilots that look, I like Tom Cruise, but better than Tom Cruise. The blonde crew cuts, the whole, and this, yes, sir. And they were in the Oval Office, 3 or 4 pilots. These are not people that make up stories. They said, all I know, sir, is there was a round object that was going 4 times faster than my F-22, which is a very fast plane. And it wasn't, it shouldn't have been. It was round, sir. They have seen, 4 or 5 guys I've interviewed, solid people, great pilots for the U.S. Air Force, etc. They've seen things that they cannot explain.
Follow-up question.
Also a maybe.
Follow-up question, Mr. President. Follow-up. If in fact there are aliens, would you be willing to put tariffs on them to help us with the economy?
That's it, folks. The aliens are real. Everybody panic. Everybody panic. They're real. Was there any actual news that came out of the Gutfeld interview? Yes, I think so, actually. And this was the real news that came out of this. Take a listen.
Waltz is a strange dude.
Oh, he's strange.
He is strange. Crazy. Him and I are the same age. How does he look so much younger?
No, he's a strange guy.
Strange.
He called up years ago. I was in the White House, and he said, my house is being surrounded by people with American flags. I said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? He said, yes. I think they're going to attack me. This was during the riots and everything else. They were MAGA people. They like the American flag, all right? And they also had Trump. And I said, how do you know? There were about 15,000, He said, could you put out a word like that I'm your friend? I don't even know him, but that's the only time I ever spoke to him. And if you look back long ago, tweets, before truth, tweets, long ago, I put out a statement. He's a good man, the governor. He's on our side. I didn't know him, but I didn't want him to get hurt. And everybody put down their flags and they left. Yes. He said it was a miracle. He said it was a miracle. I didn't want him to get hurt.
Scared by the American flag.
They are.
And they say he's not a nice guy. I would have had fun with that. I'm like, call the barbecue, go outside.
He remembers it, actually. He was a little bit nervous about things. They had one guard. He said, we have one guard at the door. It was the mansion for the state. Then he said, we have one guard at the door, and you have 15,000 people out there. And I'm a little bit, I don't know, they look violent. I said, are they carrying the American flag? They're not going to be violent.
Yes.
But I put out a statement, and they just went back. It was sort of a beautiful thing. And
I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting situation. Trump talks about how he saved Tim Walz's bacon. Should he have? I mean, looking back at something like that, if he did protect his life, then I would say, yes, it was a good thing. But if that was what was happening during COVID-19, we needed to make our politicians afraid. Make politicians afraid again. I like my politicians a little scared of the people. You know what I'm saying? Like if MAGA people were protesting Tim Walz, it was probably for a good reason. If they were there and they would have done violence later on, then what Trump did was a wise decision. But at the end of the day, at that time, in the heat of the violence and what was happening in places like Minnesota, they needed to be pushing back against their governor. I participated here in Missouri in a protest, as it was something like a week or two after they had done the initial phase of business closures here in Missouri. And it wasn't like a top-down, all of our 114 counties of Missouri had to be shut down, but it was some kind of governor order that didn't have necessarily the effect of law. I'd have to double check and remember exactly how our governor's edict worked, but people showed up to the Capitol and they showed up to the governor's mansion, and we were protesting, telling Governor Parson, we want this state open. And you know what? I'm glad we did. And I'm glad that those people were there. You know, maybe it was a mistake for Donald Trump to call them out or to call them off. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Do you think that Trump made a mistake in calling off the dogs from Tim Walz? Is it a good thing when we make politicians afraid again? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. Those text lines, again, are open anytime, Monday through Friday, from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. The big story that other networks and shows are talking about this morning, the potential Iran hack. Trump had something to say about that as well.
Today, 3 agencies of the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration, the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they just released a report confirming that Iran actors hacked into the Trump campaign's email accounts and in turn sought to give the hacked materials to the Biden-Harris campaign. They gave them all of the materials because Biden is working with Iran, and Iran doesn't exactly like me because they were ready to make a deal, except we had an election that was rigged and stolen. And look at what's happening to our world now. But no, Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out.
So Russia paying American conservative influencers, Iran hacking into Donald Trump's campaign account and transferring that information over to the Democrats, and China potentially spying on us via TikTok, but the TikTok problem might get solved. This morning, we're going to speak to Camelia Peterson at 8 a.m. Central. Time is ticking down on the Chinese app ByteDance-owned, China-owned app TikTok. If they do not successfully win their court challenges, then the application will be banned come January. We're going to speak to Camelia Peterson about that at 8 a.m. Central Time this morning. Do you think that they should ban TikTok? Is this a situation that is analogous to our Is it more of a free speech issue? Senator Rand Paul, for example, said that we should not ban TikTok because it is a constitutional right of Americans to have free speech. And there are, I know, a lot of conservatives and right-wingers and populists and libertarians who do use TikTok to try and engage in free speech and activism for the principles that we share. Should they have the right to continue doing so, specifically on the app TikTok, or should the government step in and force them to go somewhere else? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Cat Dad 21 says he's a big TikTok user. Interesting, Cat Dad. I'd love your thoughts. What do you think? Should we step in? Should the government ban TikTok? It's already essentially going to be banned unless they win their court challenges. But I would be curious to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think that this is a good thing or a bad thing. Is it a violation of free speech, or is it necessary and proper to protect American national security? One thing is for certain, though, is that foreign countries are actively engaging in espionage, subterfuge, bribery, and manipulation of American elections. It's happening this year. It's some people try and write it off. Usually they try and write it off when it's going in favor of their preferred candidate, but we can't deny that it is happening, and we need to have a discussion about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Again, don't forget to click that like button on the Wake Up America show. We've got lots of great content left to go. Camelia is going to talk to us in about 5 minutes about the TikTok ban and a funny little story about one of her favorite Missouri influencers, the Valentina Gomez chick, remember, who got famous online for burning the children's books. And we're going to talk to Daniela Pensack at 8:30 a.m. Melania Trump issued a statement regarding her nude photographs that I think is quite compelling. We're going to hear from that, but thanks to Cecilia and thanks for your donations, we've unlocked today's bonus content. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't still do Rumble Rants. Doesn't mean that you still shouldn't visit forlibertyshop.com and get yourself a box of founding flavors. We'll be right back with Camelia on Thirsty Thursday, the Wake Up America show's For Liberty Network.
The Wake Up America show's bonus content. Your financial support helps us grow the For Liberty Network, allowing us to create more shows and support our growing Freedom family. On today's bonus content, we are decoding the sex trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs. Sean Diddy Combs, the renowned music mogul, is currently facing grave federal charges. These include allegations of sex trafficking and racketeering, which have turned many heads in the entertainment and legal worlds. The indictment claims that Combs used intimidation and threats to manipulate women and others around him for his personal desires. He was arrested on Monday and formally charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting individuals for prostitution. If found guilty of the racketeering or sex trafficking charges, Combs could potentially face life imprisonment. These charges carry severe penalties, highlighting the gravity of the allegations against him. Combs pleaded not guilty and was denied bail on Tuesday. While the truth behind these allegations remains uncertain, the charges bring forth several important points for discussion. The Mann Act, a century-old federal law, is central to the charges against Combs. Originally designed to combat so-called white slavery, the act criminalizes transporting individuals across state lines for immoral activities. Critics argue that the Mann Act often criminalizes actions that shouldn't be considered crimes, like the transportation aspect in Combs' case. Federal prosecutors may be using this law to intensify charges or coerce a plea deal. The indictment alleges Combs arranged for sex workers to travel to his location, thus violating the Mann Act. It doesn't claim he coerced these workers, but arranging their travel alone suffices for a violation. Combs is also accused of organizing elaborate sex parties dubbed freak-offs, involving male sex workers in prolonged, filmed sexual activities. The legality of these actions is murky, hinging on consensual participation. While distributing controlled substances and coercing attendees are alleged, the indictment doesn't clearly state that Combs forced anyone to take drugs. The legality of his actions rests on intricate details. Combs' methods of coercion, such as promises of career opportunities and financial support, may be morally questionable, but not necessarily criminal. Yet, more severe accusations of physical assault and using recordings for blackmail are also present. Several women have previously accused Combs of assault, adding weight to the current allegations. Notably, a video showing Combs assaulting singer Cassie surfaced, leading to a civil lawsuit that was settled quickly. The charges against Combs involve a mix of allegations. Some actions, like transportation, might not be criminal, while others, like assault, are definitely prosecutable. The sex parties add a complex layer to the case. The federal government's interpretation of sex trafficking in this case appears stretched. Typically, sex trafficking involves coercion for financial gain, but Combs is accused of paying consenting sex workers and coercing others for them. This reversal of typical sex trafficking scenarios complicates the legal landscape. It's unclear if these actions genuinely fall under sex trafficking laws or if the definition is being broadened. The indictment also suggests that Combs' business operations facilitated the alleged illegal activities. This includes tasks like booking hotel rooms and supplying materials, which could be seen as normal business operations. If Combs' staff believed these parties were consensual, their actions might not constitute criminal behavior. Nevertheless, the most serious allegations involve staff concealing violence and preventing victims from leaving. The extent of the staff's knowledge about the situation is crucial in determining their culpability. Did they realize the severity of the circumstances, or were they kept in the dark? Overall, the vague and broad conspiracy charges imply that the government might have broader motives. Small-scale charges against employees don't attract as much attention or resources as a high-profile racketeering case.
Haunted by high prices and big government? Don't be a ghost of your former self this Halloween. We've got shirts that'll keep the ghouls and the government off your back. Inflation's scarier than any haunted house, but hey, why not turn it into a costume? Or how about our spooky government shirt? Guaranteed to spook anyone who's afraid of too much power. But if you're feeling real edgy, nothing says Halloween like our Michael Myers No Lives Matter shirt. Cause when it comes to big government, we all get slashed. At 4libertyshop.com, we believe in freedom, not fear. So grab your libertarian Halloween gear before the government takes an extra bite out of your wallet. Or your candy. 4libertyshop.com. Let's make Halloween tax-free.
Good morning, Rise in Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. It's been nice to see all the new names in the Rumble chat this morning. It's great to meet everybody. Thanks for clicking the follow button. I saw like just a moment ago, we had a new follower and I've got the little Rumble bot in there that tells me, yeah, Pit Boss 2022. Good morning, sir. Love to see you in the chat as well. Sidewalk Closed, Cat Dad 21, Blue Trike, Robbie Thurman, and others all hanging out this morning live. How you doing? I know you guys are excited about Thirsty Thursdays. So let's take a nice cold drink of Camellia Peterson. Looks kind of stunning and hot today. What's up with that, Camellia? How you doing?
Wonders never cease. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
I credit good lighting and a table in the hotel that actually elevates enough. Every hotel should have this. Nice.
I note today that the Constitution earrings have made their appearance.
They did, yes. I remember them this time. Well, it's Constitution Week, right?
Yes. Camellia, first question I have for you is, what is the name of the Speaker of the House of Representatives?
Well, there's plenty of jokes that could be made here, given his last name. But yeah, Mike Johnson.
Johnson? No, not Johnson.
Johnson.
You were never going to get away without a dick joke on that one, but I actually flipped the script and it was a vagina joke last time that we had. So just when you think a dick joke is coming, in comes Austin with the vagina. There it is.
Can't believe I fell for that. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Thirsty Thursday with a little innuendo, Camellia. We're glad to have you here, and thanks for dressing up. TikTok ban. So everybody was telling me, all these right-wing people who were like in favor of this ban were like, it's not a ban, it's not a ban, it's not a ban. But come January, if something doesn't change, TikTok's going to be banned here in the United States. I don't think people are especially a lot of young people, a lot like crack addict kind of types. I don't think they're ready for this.
Right. So my question was, when I was, looking at what they were talking about, some of the questions that the judges have been asking in this case, and the points that have been made, I guess my question was, if they do acquiesce in some way and they force them to divest themselves of Chinese ownership, what does that look like? I mean, is ByteDance going to be willing to do that? Like, do they sell it? They've got to have a way around that, right? They're going to figure out a way. It's profitable. Like, why would they give that up? I mean, literally just yesterday, someone I know was showing me this tripod for your cell phone or for camera or whatever, and it was really cool, right? I mean, the way it was made and everything that you could do with it, and the ease of setup was really simple. And do you know where they got it?
China.
I was like, where'd you get that? And they said, the TikTok shop. And I was like, I don't know what that is.
We're old. No. Oh God. What is this TikTok shop?
I constantly have, friends who tell me about it's the latest, this backpack, Savannah and I saw in an airport in Philadelphia. They're like, she's like, oh yeah, that's one of the viral TikTok, backpacks. And I was like, where do you get it? She's like, TikTok shop, right? So, I mean, it is highly profitable, and I cannot fathom that, the investors in TikTok would just give it up, the Chinese investors anyway. So
Plus, Fanning wants to remind us that his nickname actually is Tripod.
Okay.
Eyebrow content this morning. But Camelia, this is also a free speech issue, and it's a free speech issue not because I say it is, but a sitting U.S. Senator Rand Paul says that this is a free speech issue. And I think people, whenever they're on the right, if they're for the ban, they always jump to the whole, we got to protect kids, which is what the left does whenever they're passing some heinous legislation. Like, I think Gavin Newsom's ban of memes has something to do in it. Oh yeah, you can't create new deepfakes of children, for example. And then if you don't vote for the banning of the deepfake memes, we're all making fun of him. But he's doing the exact same thing. We're all like, oh, we're protecting the kids when it comes to TikTok. Republicans who are for the ban are making the exact same arguments that Gavin Newsom are making, and using the same tactics to clamp down on both of them, our free speech. Do you agree?
I'm conflicted. And this is why I'm conflicted. So I did not realize too that there is basically precedence for this in some way, and that it is statute that we preclude foreign ownership, adversarial foreign ownership of broadcasting licenses. And that is something that one of the judges brought up and said, isn't this basically the same thing? Because it's media, it's communication, it's influence. And so that's an interesting point. So we've already kind of set precedents in that respect. But when I was thinking about that, I also thought about RT, right?
Yes.
And why did that not apply to them? Because they just now went down in the last few months. It's like they officially shut down from if you see a broadcast now, it's because somebody is carrying the streaming version of it.
Right. Yes, and they don't withhold. There's a lot of withholding of outrage against Russia for their alleged payments made to American right-wing conservative influencers, knowingly or not, on behalf of many of those influencers. Someone knew that they were getting money from Russia, but there does seem to be a bit of a double standard in who funds what and does what to who, and why it's okay when it does it here and there. And I'm trying to find, those constitutioneerings. I'm trying to find a constitutional principle in here somewhere. The reason I think that we should not allow the government to make overly broad pronouncements on things like this, where it's television even versus the internet, is because I think that the government should have to have very, very strict standards when it comes to what a ban or something like that may apply to. I probably won't agree with the ban in the first place, but the last thing that I want to do is give the government some kind of a flexibility when it says, oh, well, this is a television station. Oh, well, this is a social media network, and it should apply in both situations, despite the fact that there may be a danger that's attributed to a foreign adversary having control of something that American citizens use, and there may and there is a very real espionage threat. We have to ask ourselves here, what really is the choke point to accomplish the goals, the stated goals that the government has to protect our children and to protect us from espionage? But shouldn't that responsibility, especially for the children, lie with the parents? Shouldn't the responsibility lie with the American people and not with the government necessarily to be the ones who decide, who choose what to turn on and what to turn off? And should we give that power to the president?
Okay, so like those are all like points I would make too. But when I was thinking this through, one of the things I thought about is like there's so many things that tie into this. And when you talk about saying that the American people, you don't want a foreign country like putting propaganda into your country, right? We don't want propaganda influencing our citizens. And you think, okay, well, our citizens should be, educated in and believe in the founding principles of our country. They should be loyal, they should be smart enough to maybe not always recognize it, but stay true to the American ideal and principles. And then, where my thought process goes is that we've had a socialist education system for 100 years now. And so we've literally not been educating our children in the principles of freedom. And so they don't have that foundation. And so they're much more susceptible. People in general are much more susceptible to the propaganda that can come from these adversarial countries. And so then you're like, well, what do you do? Because the unintended consequences, if you go too broad, means that we continue to lose more of those freedoms. So bringing it back to my favorite subject, I think that's why, education freedom is such an important thing. But yes, I mean, when you're talking about it's for the kids, right? So we have a bill that's been going through Congress right now called KOSA, Kids Online Safety Act. Similar issue in that, you want to protect the children, whether you're talking about deep fake videos, where you're talking about child porn or what they're exposed to. But at the same time, if the price of that, in order to compensate for parents who are not parenting well, if the price of that is that it violates everyone's personal privacy, because it has to by virtue of the attempt to do it, that's a steep price to pay. I don't know that, we can go down that road.
Well, one of the prices that might have to be paid is Republican electoral failure from the inability to get any young person to vote for them. Senator Rand Paul said, if Republicans want to continuously lose elections for a generation, they should pass this bill to ban TikTok. You're talking about how alienating young voters could harm the party in the long run. I know there is a voting trend that I had read about back in my third party days, which is that if a person was voted for a third party early on in their life, they were more likely to do it later on in life as well. So do outside of the box thinking when it's displayed young encourages more outside of the box thinking as they get older. But it also sort of gets people to engage in habits. It also showed that people who tended to vote Republican when they're younger do the same when they're a little bit older, or Democrat as well. So the thing is, you really do want to try and capture those voters when they're young in order to have them on the long tail be more likely to end up in your camp. And so if there are prices to pay, electoral prices may be one of them, and not everything needs to be decided on can we get elected or something like that, but it is just something to consider. Rand Paul also said before banning TikTok, these censors might want to discover that China's government already bans TikTok. So China bans TikTok in China, but not here in the United States.
And I'm sure that it's because of the Western influence in TikTok, right? I mean, TikTok is it's capitalism epitomized. So I'm sure that they don't like their people being exposed to that. But this is, when we talk about the rights response to this and this lack of legacy thinking and looking down the road at future voters, this is such a huge weakness. Like we're always behind on the cultural side of things, and using that and technology for good things, right? For our own influence. And this is something that when you look at work in grassroots engagement in conservative circles, organizations always focus on the voting demographic. And do you know where the voting demographic still is? They're on Facebook, right? It's because it's like, 50 plus or, 55 plus, and they're not paying attention to Instagram and TikTok. And these are families with young children, and they are young people, and it's such a huge missed opportunity. And there are some organizations who are starting to work on that effort, and knowing that you have to find ways to reach young people to lay that foundation. You have to reach families with young children, because you get the kids, you get the parents. And, we need people plugged into those ideas and principles of liberty, because, 20 years down the road, we're going to be really hurting.
It's true. Camellia Peterson joining us live. Another Missourian who loves freedom joining us here on the show this morning. Camellia Peterson is our Tuesday and Thursday regular guest on the Wake Up America show at 8 a.m. Central on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For 2 years now, Camellia has nearly always been there helping to support the Wake Up America show's mission to spread the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. So if you're enjoying Camelia's content, make sure you come back on Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time slot so that you can enjoy her wisdom, her wit, and watch me tease her and make her blush. Right? Right.
Recovering from my gullibility.
Yeah. You've got that native, and this is not a slight against my fellow Midwesterners or natives, but you've got that kind of Midwestern gullibility that comes with growing up around people who are nice and generally like care about your well-being typically, and like they want to live in a nice like community where there's a high trust. It's a high trust community here in the Midwest. So when I went to New York City and I lived there, and I lived in DC, and everybody's stabbing each other in the back and sleeping with each other's girlfriends and wives and all this kind of stuff, I came back after 11 years of living in that environment, and I'm like, you guys are so naive. You're so gullible. And, like, I could say anything, and I do. And usually and get away with it. And it's just kind of amazing because Midwesterners, as one who was born and raised, we trust, we believe. We see a fellow beautiful, handsome white person approaching us and saying something, and we just believe him. You know what I mean? We like it white out here. We like it white out here.
Gosh. From a psychological perspective, like people have a lot higher trust in people that they perceive as attractive. They also perceive them as being more intelligent and whatever, and that's not always the case. But
well, Japan, for example, like they have a high trust society, and it's probably in large part because despite the fact that there's millions and millions of them, and so a fairly crowded island, they're all of like the same ethnic genius family. And so I think it's easier on probably some biological level to just be like, oh, they look like me. I'm more likely they speak my language. I'm more likely to trust them versus, I mean, who hasn't been an American in a shady part of a town, and you can't, and everybody's speaking a foreign language for whatever, and you're just kind of like, am I going to die? You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of, there's probably something genetic to that, but also maybe they read the FBI's crime statistics.
Well, yeah, that's true.
That could be. John Knox in the chat says, the left likes to burn books and ban things these days, and sadly the right sometimes goes that way too. Speaking of, though, are there some books, Camellia, that do deserve to be burned? I mean, like, we've all seen the videos of the Nazi kids throwing Albert Einstein books on the fire, but the Nazis of today do like to remind us, Camellia, that some of the books that the Nazis burned were about the types of sexual proclivities that we're seeing today embraced out in the mainstream. There were a lot of writers, there were a lot of books that the Nazis burned that, for example, talked about transgenderism and transsexuals and all kinds of gender wang that people like yourself and myself personally may or may not be disgusted by. But there's another person today who I'm not saying is a Nazi, but burn books here in our home state of Missouri, got quite famous for it. But the books that she burned were the books that were specifically aimed towards children to target them for the fact that they had introduced leftist gender wang concepts to children through these books. So she takes Elon Musk's flamethrower, she burns the books, she becomes very popular, she runs for Secretary of State here in Missouri, she loses, she gets demolished, she takes the money that she raised from the people here in Missouri, she buys a Tesla, and then she gets demonetized on X even though she loves Elon Musk. So question one, are there some books that deserve to be burned? And then question two, Valentina Gomez, any change of heart or mind on her? I mean, she is kind of a free speech warrior for Missouri. So you can answer those in any order.
Okay, so to the first question, probably in the 80s and 90s, we should have been burning Harlequin romance novels.
Oh, yes. Good answer, Camelia. Good answer.
We might have our society might be better for it now if we had done that then. And now you can find them in all of the old used bookstores, maybe. However, as to the question of Valentina, I told you earlier, I had somewhat forgotten she existed because she blocked me quite a while back. And so my feed on Twitter has been blissfully free of Valentina content. However, it cracked me up. I had not realized that she spent $100,000 on a Tesla truck. And of course, she's always, the whole thing with the book burning and the jogging and the everything else, right? It was all to build her social media influence. And she's constantly been trying to.
And it worked.
Really, really, sure. Yeah, sure, because
because men are simpy, horny little, because men are horny little simps and they can't get laid. And so they use these women online as like avatars of the women that they'll never be able to get in real life. Unhinged failed GOP candidate regrets Cybertruck purchase after X demonetized her. She was the one who said things are weak and gay, and she's always got the AR-15. Nothing wrong with the AR-15, of course. The weak and gay homophobe, this is from LGBTQ Nation, don't ask me why I'm reading it, was recently demonetized by the social media platform despite repeatedly praising Musk's Cybertruck. So she's out there supporting Elon Musk full hog, and she's standing on her Cybertruck that she spent with $100,000. Maybe some of that were campaign donations, although probably not. And then she gets demonetized on X. There's a bitter irony to that.
Sure, because she has spent this whole time.
They're eating the dogs.
Right, trying to get Elon's attention.
Yes.
Because his platform was what really gained her traction. She'd been trying to get his attention unsuccessfully. Right? But, what's funny though, is she's, saying all these things that cracked me up that she got demonetized. And I'd like to see like the actual reason they had behind that. And of course, the simps in her mentions are all like, oh, there is somebody at X that is targeting, these people, right? There's all of these reasons why.
All of these right-wing guys. And I say this as a right-wing podcaster, but I see all these like right-wing podcaster guys who are so horny, and it's just like, God dang, guys, like we always project this air of masculinity. I was talking about this yesterday about like the Elon Musk kind of bro thing with Donald Trump and stuff, but we got a lot of beta males on the right who are just simps, right? Simps. I mean, doesn't it just make you roll your eye, Camelia?
It does. It's not just on the right. It's kind of all over.
Well, like the left, we know that the left. If you're a leftist man, you're a soy boy, confirmed, right? But we should not expect that within our own ranks, right? That the women, they beguile these men, but it's because they're sexless, Camelia. We've got to. I mean, I don't want to say incel like a slang, but I mean they're not celibate by choice. They're certainly not celibate by choice. And then they take these like, so you know what the worst are? At least I'll give it to Valentina Gomez. She's a real human being. But There are so many fake accounts that are AI bot, like hot female accounts that are like right-wing Trump accounts. And you can see it. It's worse than like those Indian dudes who are like show bobs and vagine, like, hey, dearie, show me her bobs, right? It's worse. They're like, and they're talking to an AI avatar. And it's like, it's boomer cons. And they're just like, oh, baby, I love Trump too. You're my perfect ideal woman. It's like, that's a dude. Like, you spend all day hating on transgenders. You're talking about making love to a man here. It's a man, baby. It's a man.
No, the funny thing about Valentina getting so mad about being demonetized and everything is she's ranting and raving and all that. But at the very end, she's also like, but, I still like Elon, right? She doesn't want to totally alienate him, right? So so she's really not that mad at him, but she's just mad about being demonetized because duh. But
she's like the type of person, like, I'm so glad we didn't elect her because like somebody like her, like she's so easily manipulated because she's so obsessed with fame. And it's not, I mean, in no way, shape, or form, I guess, was anybody convinced that she had any interest in serving the interests of the people of Missouri, like being a public servant. Because when you run for office to be a public servant, she didn't even talk about the job that the Secretary of State does. She didn't even know in some interviews. And it's kind of like, it's nice. Get your social media fame. I understand there's a lot of horny boys out there who are going to send you $5 for the OnlyFans or whatever. But like when it comes to running for office, let people who really want to do public service, like do that. Stop wasting people's time.
And here's the thing, for all the guys who think that this is all her and she's this, powerful woman that just gets it, right? You haven't seen her brother, who is with her everywhere and has been with her from the beginning. And this is just me going out on a limb speculating, but I've seen a whole lot of them in this state. And I would say that there is a 90% chance that he is behind virtually everything that she does on social media, masterminding the whole thing. When they are, when Matt Gaetz is coming out and promoting her, guess who's meeting with Matt Gaetz the day before?
Yeah.
Her brother.
Yeah.
Like it is.
No, I think it's just funny too, because like the simping, back to the simping, right? Like, well, why so many simps and stuff is that, she moved from New Jersey to Missouri and ran for office, became a social media sensation. But like here in the Midwest, how I talk about how after I lived in the East Coast, I come back and like Midwesterners are like, a little gullible, a little naive, perhaps, right? Because in New York, everybody's trying to take advantage of you. But like we have this concept here where we call it like a Missouri 8 is like a New York 4. So like in Missouri, somebody like a Gomez, she's like a Missouri 8, but she's a New York 4. You know what I'm saying? So our standards are so low. Like if you ever wonder about like why like men really are failing, it's I feel like some of the criticism of like the red pill or like the anti-feminist guys on the right and stuff like that, some of the criticism against them is true in that a lot of this red pill stuff and a lot of the philosophy of like masculinity is for them a LARP. They want to have they think that the trappings of masculinity, like muscles or fatherhood or all these things, that those are like the symbols of masculinity, but they don't want like the responsibility, the valor, the virtue, the challenges, the trials and travails that come with becoming a man. Like I know a lot of men with muscles who aren't really men. I know a lot of men who have insecurity and problems because they didn't build up that character of a man. And so they're easily hornswoggled with their horniness by out-of-state Latinas who are Missouri 8s, but New York 4s.
And that's so much of the problem. It's like so many other movements, right? You kind of, and it's the same thing with the masculinity movement. It is that it gets co-opted by the people who are taking advantage of it to, whether you want to call it grifting or whether, making a buck or getting a following.
Right. Like I'm a white chick I'm a white average looking female with green eyes and a pair of boobs. And I'm going to call someone a faggot and say the N word, you know what I mean? And I'm famous.
And the thing is like, they want, and so many men, by the way, are falling for this because you see a lot of the conversation online about the red pill movement and they're like,
alone.
Oh,
they're lonely.
Yeah, for sure. And
they've never known the touch of a woman.
Well, and they think the answer when they look at all what's most, popular in being said, they think the answer is that you use women for your pleasure and that makes you dominant. Like you
Right.
take out the commitment component.
Like the Andrew Tate school of things. Make them be your cam girls, make them be your, your subservient and all that kind of stuff. It's funny being the father now of a little girl really has given me more perspective into my own masculinity as I think about how it relates to being a father to a little girl. And I imagine that in the next several years, as she goes into teenagehood and adulthood, that I will probably grow even more character, hopefully in positive ways, as I contend with my protective feelings over her, with also the lack of respect for your gender in total. Just kidding, Camellia. Just kidding. There's a few women that I like. Camellia.
We seem to be ruled by the fringes of our movements, and so we keep trying to present, what it's really supposed to be, what liberty is really supposed to be, right?
Yes.
What the masculinity movement really is supposed to be.
Well, let's be honest
Those are
here.
good things.
These kinds of saucy comments, if I was a Missouri 2, if I was a real ugly fat dude, I would not be able to get away with those kinds of comments unless I had a really big beard and I had a MAGA hat on and I was really funny. But otherwise, you can't have these kinds of opinions as a man without being good looking. Camellia, where can people follow you online?
Rare Camellias, I'm on Twitter the most. That's where you can find me. I'm on Instagram, but that's much more boring because Twitter's my favorite.
Me too. Camellia, thanks very much for being up here and putting up with my jokes about your single eye. Love you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, Camellia. Thank you. We've got Daniela Pensack coming up next. Melania Trump issued a statement about her nudes. Okay, you guys thought you were excited before. You thought you were horny before. Melania Trump nudes conversation coming up next on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Don't go. Where are you going? Come back. Sit down. We got a lot to do on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Bye, guys. Years ago, we started this journey together, bringing you the Wake Up America show every morning. I couldn't have done it without my incredible wife, Steffi, who's always by my side, and now our beautiful baby, Hazel, who's already getting used to studio life, waiting patiently during Freedom Family Fridays. What truly makes this show special is you. Your donations, your purchases from forlibertyshop.com. You're not just supporters, you're family. Together we've built something amazing, and we're just getting started. Thank you for being a part of our family. Here's to many more years of Wake Up America.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars. ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks, just pure patriotic pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Click the like button. If today is your very first time watching the Wake Up America show, we love having new guests hanging out. So make sure that you say hi in the chat, introduce yourself, and click that follow button as well so that you can come back and join us for our regular scheduled programming, which is Monday through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a 2-hour, fun, freedom-filled hours of content and news, politics, talk, laughter, pranks. We're just always having a great time in the morning. But we also talk about serious subjects, and we try and keep you as informed as possible so that when you hit the water cooler in the afternoon, that you will know what happened, because you'll hear it on the Wake Up America show sometimes 2 days before Fox News covers the story. Every Monday through Friday, the Wake Up America show is bringing you amazing guests. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have Camellia. On Thursdays, it's a special treat because we take Camellia and we go from one lovely lady to another. Our regular guest and now host of her own brand new show launching soon, Culturama. Everyone, let's give a round of applause to Daniela Pensack, who we have grown to become very fond of. Good morning, Daniela.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure to be on here every Thursday.
Yeah, Daniela, it's the show is 2 years old, and I made a promise when I first started this program that it would not be just this podcast, that eventually we would expand into more podcasts, into a network, and then from the network I will expand into hopefully documentary filmmaking and maybe then even feature filmmaking on the long run. But now we're here. The medium term is here. You're going to host your own show on our For Liberty network, Culturama. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. The launch date is yet to be discussed, but as you can see, I have a new setup, new camera and microphone. So I'm really excited to see where this show's going to go.
It's going to be awesome because, Danielle, we're all independent. You, me, the boys, the new shows. Like, we don't have some corporate overlord telling us what to do. You know, we're going to make these decisions in tandem as business partners. You know, I'm investing in you and your future, and I think that you are just a mega talent, Daniela. So I know that 2 years from now, we are not going to be in the same position. I saw your video that you did on the analysis of Brazil. For Brazil, you did in Portuguese, an analysis of the debate, the Kamala Harris-Donald Trump debate, on some channel that had like 1 million followers. And all of the Brazilians were like, we finally get some international coverage here. And I guess there was some greasy guy that you had replaced from before. So congratulations on taking over from.
I'm
It's
not
definitely an
familiar
upgrade.
about any greasy guys. But yes, the Brazilians are very I'm just gonna say they're very thankful to have me on board. This is a political movement that this Brazilian channel that I'm on now in Brazil. It's like one of their largest political movements and they wanted me to come on. So I was really excited to come on. But the Brazilian fan base is quite interesting. It's a little bit to get used to. It's a little different from, you
We're
could say
very
an American fan
boisterous,
base.
very rambunctious, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. Very
Yeah.
outspoken people.
Good, good. Well, Daniela, you would know you're a very outspoken person yourself, and I think people will really be excited to hear and see your views on Culturama, a new live show 2 nights a week on the For Liberty Network starring Daniela Pensac. They'll be able to say, I knew you win. And we're all really thankful that everybody's going to, get stronger, faster, better, harder. And, great song by Daft Punk and absolutely true. Hey, Daniela, this is a delicate subject for anybody to have. And I want to try and be respectful while recognizing that there is inherently some humor to nudes, right? Nude photographs, right? There's an inherent sexuality. There's an inherent comedy that's involved with this. Melania Trump, however, who, of course, with her past as a fashion model, has had nude photographs taken of her. And I'll say this, that her response to some of, I guess, what you might call the online bullying was quite touching. And she issued a statement about how she's not ashamed of herself or what she had done and sort of pushed back on some of the haters. What's your analysis of this story?
Yes, so for those that don't know, Melania Trump did make a tweet yesterday talking about her previous photos on GQ, which is a men's magazine. And it is basically photos of her. It's not full frontal, but she's pretty scantily clad. She's basically nude. The pictures aren't the most, I would say, reformed. She is pictured chained to a suitcase full of jewelry. So it is quite interesting. If you want to look it up, you can just find it online. But she did make a public statement saying that she stands proudly behind her nudes, and she went on to compare herself to Michelangelo's David and other classic pieces of art, which, whatever you think about that, that's your personal opinion. I wouldn't consider those pictures comparative to classic art, but that's just my opinion. But she did get some online harassment for it, as many do online when they post things like that. This really was, I think, and it's quite obvious, more of like a stunt to promote her upcoming autobiography just called Melania. You can pre-order it now on her website. So, it is a little bit of a stunt, but it did add some discourse on the issue about the first lady having her nudes out there, and how the public should really address that or respond to it or react to it. And my personal opinion on Austin, I wouldn't compare it to to Michelangelo's David, or like to classic pieces of art like how she's referenced. I would call them a bit smutty, but at the same time, is it really is it a good thing or a good image to present to the public that the first lady has her nudes out there? I don't think so, but at the same time, like, these are the Trumps. They are quite exceptional. He's one of our most exceptional, if not our most exceptional president ever to find office. So I'm not surprised that the Trumps out there, they made a name for themselves doing unusual stunts, and Melania Trump, I'm not surprised that she has nudes out there. So the fact of the matter is they are an exceptional family. They are different. And really, the Christian conservatives out there that have always considered Trump like a paragon of morality or virtue, I think is a bit silly. And to be surprised that the first lady has her nudes out there in the first place, it shouldn't surprise anyone.
Well, here's my conspiracy.
Family, but that's why they're so unique.
My conspiracy theory on the conservatives who might be upset about that is a lot of those are kind of never Trumper types who have a bone to pick with Trump, and they're always it's not because they're standing on some Christian virtues. Many of them supported him back in the previous 2 elections, knowing all the same things that they know now. They're just ass mad because he spanked Ron DeSantis, their boy, in the primary, and they haven't gotten over it. Many of them have gone over to the never Trump neocon side of things, and some of them have Trump derangement syndrome. And Melania is just collateral damage in their war against Donald Trump. And, this happens to his kids and things too. But in terms of like the social conservative view on things, I've never considered myself to be socially conservative in many respects, just because I think with with social conservatism comes an intolerance to a large degree that I don't share. And it's not to suggest that it's, irrational prejudice or bigotry, but I mean that the standards and values of a social conservative are ones that I just simply do not share. I consider myself to be more of a socially tolerant, so open-minded person. So, of course, nude photographs of Melania Trump or, Trump being on the cover of Playboy magazine, these are not the kinds of things that ruffle my feathers per se, but we are in a culture war now, Danielle, and we're having these conversations. You're going to be the host of your own show, Culturama. This will be a big topic for people like yourself. But the question here really is one, there's the left's double standard. If the left is attacking her, they're the quintessential sluts, right? I mean, the left does the slut walks, they're porn stars, they're pornographers, and some, I assume, are good people. But the point is that the left would be hypocritical to attack Melania over nude photographs. The right, the ones who would attack her, very few are doing so for principle. So at the end of the day, she's selling some autobiography. Some conservatives get to like pick a bone with her. The left gets to attack her. Bigger picture here, though. I mean, is there a conversation to be had about women's sexuality in the nude form and how we sort of react to it as a person? I mean, as a culture writ large, not just all the political factions or special interests and things like that, but like freaking out about nude women's bodies, right? There's something very puritanical in the American culture. I don't know if I identify with it. Do you?
Well, no, that's a good point. There is a greater conversation to be had. It is a conversation that the United States and America and the greater West has had for a long time, is like how much is the American public or the Western public supposed to accept this? Is it sexual degeneracy? Is it social degeneracy? Personally, I think that there are some activities and some behaviors that should be culturally discouraged. One of those is an over sexual appeal, I would say. I think the American culture is focused quite a bit on sex. For marketing purposes, for now apparently political purposes as well. I will say this is a good move on Melania's part, because it is keeping the Trumps, especially right now in election season. They're keeping the narrative, and they're hijacking the narrative right now on social media. After the second assassination attempt, now this drops. It's a riling up discourse. Obviously, leftists are going to be quite upset about this because that's politics. Everyone's going to say the opposing opinion, regardless if he's your opposition and if his wife is your opposition. So they're maintaining the narrative on social media, and I think that's quite genius, actually. But as far as the conversation goes about sexuality, the female form, sexual degeneracy, even, as long as now we do have issues with transgenderism, which I think is a real social contagion, and I think sexuality like that especially should be culturally discouraged. And in the same vein, even if it's the classic female form or heterosexuality, there is a difference, I think, when it's being put in public as, is it actually art, which we do have obvious examples of nudity being used in art, or is it kind of smutty? And I would say that Melania Trump's photos are kind of smutty. I don't think it's very becoming, but I wouldn't say that I would discourage it out of the full access to the American public at all. I have a few views on the access of pornography, access of certain images, and I'm not opposed to its access at all. But more so, however, I do think that certain behaviors and certain images should be discouraged just for public safety, for the fact that something like pornography is so accessible even to children these days, nudity as well. So it's a very complicated topic. I think there's a good balance to be struck here. As far as Melania is concerned, I'm glad that she's standing proudly behind them for various reasons. She's keeping her husband relevant. She's keeping the Trumps relevant, and it is causing a little bit of discourse with it, which I think is always good.
Yeah, I think that consenting adults to some degree should be able to express their sexuality to other consenting adults, and that culture will reflect sexuality just as a matter, I think, requirement. Because we look at, for example, those works of art. the statue of David, the Venus de Milo, we look at them in the context of the culture that we live in now and ask these questions. It's very difficult for us to look at her in the cultural context that she existed in, and they may have at the time, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, they may have at the time seen that as smutty, right? They may have looked at the Venus de Milo and thought to themselves, this is a symbol of the degeneration of our society and of our culture. And if their civilization has fallen, which I'm assuming it has, then yes, you could maybe they do point to that. It becomes kind of a spiral. Unfortunately, however, when you talk about the degeneracy of society, Daniela, is that, I'm just obsessed with World War II, right? So when I listen to and read podcasts and books and stories and about the degeneracy of Berlin before the Nazis took over the country, the argument from the National Socialists is that the degeneracy of the nightclubs in Berlin was part of the reason, the disgust and the revulsion of the sexuality of German culture in the cosmopolitan, in the urban areas in Munich and in Berlin and in Dusseldorf, was that had been part of the rise of National Socialism, was people's disgust with the behavior of what was happening in the beer halls and in the burlesque halls. And so it does lead one to question, how far do you go policing people's sexuality before, you have to send in stormtroopers, right, to some extent? At what point do we become little groypers, right, in control? There has to be some sort of tolerance for the romantic, the sentimental. Like there's a pornography in romance novels, for the love of God, and these are books people have to actually read words. I know it's old fashioned, right? But I mean, Camellia made the joke earlier that if we're going to burn books, it should have been Harlequin romance novels. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey. It is it's smutty. But I mean, maybe they'll look back and 50 Shades of Grey will be our Venus de Milo.
That very much could be possible. As far as Berlin is concerned and the degeneracy there, yes, this is a big question, the Berlin question or the BQ. Like, was it the wrong move or the right move? I've heard conversations being had that the literature that came out of Berlin at that time set as a prototype for a lot of transgender ideology for today, which I think is, obviously bad. And it does pose as a social safety risk, as a risk for children's health as well, that we're seeing in the United States right now.
Possibly, but I mean, men wearing dresses, is
I just want that on record too.
Sure, yeah, but men have been wearing dresses since dresses were invented. So, but it's a post hoc ergo propter hoc, right? It happened before something, therefore it caused that thing, right? This happened, therefore it caused that happen, right? So it's a lot of fallacies that National Socialist groypers, things like that, those types tend to make, right? Is that they want to draw those conclusions from that because it fits their narrative. We don't know that that's true, because what we're talking about essentially is sociology, which is kind of like therapy. It's 95% bullshit, right? And 5% truth, because of you could fill a book with what we don't know about the human brain and our psychology and what things lead to one thing to another, right? Milk is a gateway drug to alcohol because you drink it before you drink alcohol. So when it comes to Melania Trump and the bigger picture, this conversation, what we're having, I mean, it doesn't matter if we judge her nudes to be smutty or, ups or down. At the end, they're out there and we're having this conversation. And so we have to just ask ourselves, like, is it something that we want to see less of from our first ladies? Do we want to see more naked first ladies, or do we want to see less? I'm sure that we might actually be in the minority if we said fewer naked ladies. I guess it depends on the first lady, but people are lewd, Daniela. Yes. The amount of people in this society that are real, true, that really could be moral arbiters. Jesus said, "Let he who casts the first stone It's kind of like, who are you to judge? I know, you can find almost any sacred text that confirm any worldview, but for the rest of us that don't live in Jesus land, we've got to contend with, morals and ethics, absent of some prescription from a higher power. And so, to answer these questions is legal. What's legal, right? It's legal, right? So it's probably okay. How would you respond to that?
I mean, this is absolutely true, and yes, you can use scripture to justify any worldview. I think we just have to look at the byproduct of what those kind of behaviors solicit. And I think, theoretically speaking, if every first lady had nudes out there, off starting with this upcoming presidency onward,
That's a
if every
requirement.
first lady, I genuinely don't know how that would affect society. I personally don't think it would be a good image, but you know what, Austin, you could be right. Like maybe like 200 years, 300 years from now, these could be considered classical pieces of art. I wouldn't go so far as to say that the nudes and classical art of the past, particularly especially like in the Baroque era, was considered lewd even back then. But you never know. Anything's possible. I think that I have been considered a sex negative. I want to call myself a feminist, but I've been considered sex negative. So, with my branding, I wouldn't want to promote these things. But on the other hand, it could be a lot of fun. Imagine every presidency, there's going to be a new nude out there. It sets for a lot of and that could actually affect voting trends too. Now
do
people
you
are going to
sort
be
of
voting on how hot the first lady is.
This is okay. So, boy, this is a great conversation. Do you sort of, though, become a de facto feminist, Daniela, to the extent that you're highly educated and a career woman who, is putting your career up there at the top of the things? I mean, do you kind of like have to be, because if the alternative is like women have a place in society, you've certainly broken out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been posed with this question a lot before. I used to call myself an egalitarian, and I don't do that anymore either. I just believe in merit. Now, do I consider myself a feminist? I don't like to use that term at all, obviously. It's also bad for my brand. But you're right. In a way, I do have to consider myself a feminist, and I've contended with that before. I like to say that I am, an exception in some cases when in regards to my interests and my upbringing, and so therefore I came out a certain way in terms of my behaviors. And you can see that a lot happen more often with women these days too. But I think that's more a byproduct of a poison culture, more so that women are just naturally this way. But yeah, I would concede that in a way I would have to admit that in some ways I could be considered a feminist. I've contended with that already.
Yeah, it's a challenge because we very rarely do we have honest conversations about what these words mean and people's actions versus their words. And I'm glad that you acknowledge it's bad for your brand, but I think also that the word itself has gotten twisted, and it's kind of become like woke, where people use it without quite understanding that there are different schools of feminism. If you go to Wikipedia right now, there's probably like 13 different types of feminism that they have listed there, and you can read about each one of them. But women voting, women's suffrage, having women take jobs in powerful jobs in government and in corporations, I would typically believe that someone who is in favor of something like that, I would consider that to be a feminist, right? Like someone who is a real anti-feminist in my mind is someone who is, women have a place in society, and that place is as mothers. If they work, it should be simply for the fact that they have to in order to take care of the family because of the inflationary crisis that we're suffering. But that women typically need to have a subservient role to men in society and politics and government and business, because men are more suited to fit these roles. So you're not an egalitarian, right? And you're not woke, so you don't believe in quotas for women. You said you believe in a meritocracy to some extent, but it is a feminist impulse to defy that more patriarchal view of society that is held by a lot of conservatives.
Well, the way I would respond to that is that I don't like the term feminist because it does cause this dichotomy, and of course, it's always going to be a dichotomy between the sexes. There's obviously two different sexes here, but I prefer to look at it as from an individualist approach, because yes, do women have typical behavioral patterns due to their biology? Absolutely, and you can look at statistics that prove this. but I don't like to address it as though there's a set role. So, for instance, if you are born a woman or a man, you are expected to do that regardless. Unless, like you mentioned, you have to due to
You
the
would,
economy or whatnot.
so
A
you
woman
think
has
they
to get
do
a job.
have, so you do think they do have like there's a biological impact on the outcomes of what tasks they
Yes.
endeavor. Do you think then, and this is very controversial, Daniela, but do you think then that a female judge's decision making would be impaired due to the biological imperative that is placed on women once a month?
Ooh, yes, I do. However, the chances of a woman making the wrong decision is higher. And that's the reason why I think biologically I say what I say about women, finding certain roles in life. But however, I don't think that is true of all women. I think that there are some women that are able to control certain impulses because at least in the same degree that men are, because men are also exposed to certain hormones that do affect decision making as well. So I always do think there's like that 20-30% that are exceptions to the rule. 23% is actually quite large. I would say maybe 20. I haven't done the math on it yet. But I do think there is a portion of people that can, control themselves in a way and or have or behave in controlled manners that are different from the majority in society. And I think they should still have the ability to, practice what they want to practice. But I don't think we should assign certain roles to certain people simply based on their biology. We should always have some degree of merit. We should allow some degree of merit. So at a young age, if a child acts a certain way, I do have like a specific theory on education. I think, as soon as a person's young enough, like elementary level, if a child shows certain behaviors, we should direct their professional pathways in that professional pathway. And what you'll find is most boys are good with their hands. Same with girls. Most young girls they have a proclivity towards playing house or with dolls. But you're always going to have the 20% where they are exceptions to the rule.
Man.
And I think we should still lead them accordingly. And so if a woman, has her time of the month, they could affect it always, but I think it's no more so than a man, being affected by his hormones at a certain age as well. Also, positions like a judge, I think, should also be reserved for older ages anyway. But that's neither here nor there. I think that's out of experience.
Danielle,
But
if I hadn't worded that question so artfully, I can imagine there would have been a lot of rage, and maybe I should have been a little bit more crude in the way that I asked that question because it would have gone viral for sure. I think most people, when they talk about biological imperative, they're not understanding the entire concept right away. Daniela, conversations like these are going to be had twice a week live on your own show, Culturama. Before we go, what do you plan on doing with this show? Like, what's the direction? Like, what do you envision your own new live podcast to be discussing topics wise? And what are your hopes for the show?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as the name suggested, we'll be talking primarily about American culture and politics, and how politics affect culture, how certain viewpoints are evolving. I like to call it. I like to refer to the zeitgeist. I guess not everyone knows that, but I do want to talk about the American zeitgeist. What is happening with American culture, where it's going forward, and what are some things that we can learn looking in the past as well, and apply that to the present. And so, in Culturama, I will be talking primarily about culture, but I also want to have, great guests on. And I'm not going to throw names out there yet. I want to, set that in stone. But I do plan on having many guests in which we discuss about some of these topics. And I do, what, Austin, I do want to talk about some spicy topics as well. I think like the conversations you and I had right now are important to have. And conversations that are, or topics that are drastically affecting American culture that we just don't talk about, I want to talk about on this show. Obviously, I'm going to try to keep it as appropriate as possible, but I think there are just some topics that are necessary to discuss. I want it to be a free speech zone, but I'll do my best to also keep it marketable as well. But I'm really excited, and I think it's going to do great things.
I do too, Danielle. I think you're going to be fantastic, and I know you're going to be a big success. It's going to be a live show like this one. But it'll be at a different time, so you can watch it later and hang out with Daniela. And Daniela is also able to chat with you guys on our locals page. So go to forliberty.locals .com and sign up to be a regular supporter and subscriber. Daniela is over there. You can chat with her, comment with her. It's a great way to get in touch with everybody on the For Liberty Network team. Daniela, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
I'm going to say what I always say, Austin. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Pensac Daniela. You could also follow me on Instagram at official Daniela Pensac. And yes, follow me in locals as well. It's going to be at the For Liberty Network, Daniela Pensac. So I'm looking forward to see you guys.
Daniela, thanks for that. Great conversation. We managed to take a conversation that could have been dirty, weird, smutty, stupid, silly, funny, and turn it into a much bigger discussion, sparked a much bigger discussion about philosophy and history and art and culture. And I think that you've done that well. Yes. That's why I know you're going to be a success. Daniela, thanks for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. You too, Austin.
Yep. See you next week. That's Daniela Pensac. Give her a round of applause. Great conversations. Where else are you hearing these kinds of conversations? Nowhere else but on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Austin Peterson, me, your host, owns the For Liberty Network. I'm producing this show, Daniela's new show, and Liberty Tonight, which when I saw some of the mock-ups last night, guys, and what the guys had put together for a show was so funny. I was like, yes, this is going to be fantastic. Something spectacular that you and I, the viewer, the listener, the supporter, are doing together. I mean, if you've clicked the like button, if you've followed this channel, you have helped to build this network from one show now to coming 3 shows, right? So much opportunity has been afforded to me, and it's been because of your financial blessings. Thank you.
Can you bless me with something?
I mean, I'm begging.
Money-wise.
If I don't ask...
Can you suck it?
Excuse me? I won't be doing any favors like that in order to get money out of you guys. But if you do want to support my show and support the For Liberty Network in general, then head on over to forlibertyshop.com as you exit through the Grift Shop. Yes, the Grift Shop at forlibertyshop.com. Buy the coffee. It's delicious. Drink it with us in the morning. Join the cult. Is this a cult? No, we're just an autonomous collection of libertarians who drink the same coffee every morning and wear tracksuits. And then when the spaceship comes by, we all decide to commit suicide at the exact same time, right?
How dare you?
We're not a cult, though. Just kidding. The Wake Up America show viewers are the best. Tomorrow's Friday. That means Freedom Family Friday. My wife, Stephanie Peterson, joins us on set, and my sweet little baby Hazel. We'll have the baby cam, and if we unlock the bonus baby, then you get the bonus baby content on the baby cam. You get to see my beautiful little redheaded daughter. My daughter. And my wife. Take my wife, please. My daughter, I will keep. Just kidding. Love you, Steffi. We'll see you here tomorrow with 2 beautiful redheaded girls, a gentleman who will zoom in from Boston, me, AP, for Liberty, on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Bye, guys.
The Wake Up America show's bonus content. Your financial support helps us grow the For Liberty Network, allowing us to create more shows and support our growing Freedom family. On today's bonus content, we are decoding the sex trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs. Sean Diddy Combs, the renowned music mogul, is currently facing grave federal charges. These include allegations of sex trafficking and racketeering, which have turned many heads in the entertainment and legal worlds. The indictment claims that Combs used intimidation and threats to manipulate women and others around him for his personal desires. He was arrested on Monday and formally charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting individuals for prostitution. If found guilty of the racketeering or sex trafficking charges, Combs could potentially face life imprisonment. These charges carry severe penalties, highlighting the gravity of the allegations against him. Combs pleaded not guilty and was denied bail on Tuesday. While the truth behind these allegations remains uncertain, the charges bring forth several important points for discussion. The Mann Act, a century-old federal law, is central to the charges against Combs. Originally designed to combat so-called white slavery, the act criminalizes transporting individuals across state lines for immoral activities. Critics argue that the Mann Act often criminalizes actions that shouldn't be considered crimes, like the transportation aspect in Combs' case. Federal prosecutors may be using this law to intensify charges or coerce a plea deal. The indictment alleges Combs arranged for sex workers to travel to his location, thus violating the Mann Act. It doesn't claim he coerced these workers, but arranging their travel alone suffices for a violation. Combs is also accused of organizing elaborate sex parties dubbed freak-offs, involving male sex workers in prolonged, filmed sexual activities. The legality of these actions is murky, hinging on consensual participation. While distributing controlled substances and coercing attendees are alleged, the indictment doesn't clearly state that Combs forced anyone to take drugs. The legality of his actions rests on intricate details. Combs' methods of coercion, such as promises of career opportunities and financial support, may be morally questionable, but not necessarily criminal. Yet, more severe accusations of physical assault and using recordings for blackmail are also present. Several women have previously accused Combs of assault, adding weight to the current allegations. Notably, a video showing Combs assaulting singer Cassie surfaced, leading to a civil lawsuit that was settled quickly. The charges against Combs involve a mix of allegations. Some actions, like transportation, might not be criminal, while others, like assault, are definitely prosecutable. The sex parties add a complex layer to the case. The federal government's interpretation of sex trafficking in this case appears stretched. Typically, sex trafficking involves coercion for financial gain, but Combs is accused of paying consenting sex workers and coercing others for them. This reversal of typical sex trafficking scenarios complicates the legal landscape. It's unclear if these actions genuinely fall under sex trafficking laws or if the definition is being broadened. The indictment also suggests that Combs' business operations facilitated the alleged illegal activities. This includes tasks like booking hotel rooms and supplying materials, which could be seen as normal business operations. If Combs' staff believed these parties were consensual, their actions might not constitute criminal behavior. Nevertheless, the most serious allegations involve staff concealing violence and preventing victims from leaving. The extent of the staff's knowledge about the situation is crucial in determining their culpability. Did they realize the severity of the circumstances, or were they kept in the dark? Overall, the vague and broad conspiracy charges imply that the government might have broader motives. Small-scale charges against employees don't attract as much attention or resources as a high-profile racketeering case.
Haunted by high prices and big government? Don't be a ghost of your former self this Halloween. We've got shirts that'll keep the ghouls and the government off your back. Inflation's scarier than any haunted house, but hey, why not turn it into a costume? Or how about our spooky government shirt? Guaranteed to spook anyone who's afraid of too much power. But if you're feeling real edgy, nothing says Halloween like our Michael Myers No Lives Matter shirt. Cause when it comes to big government, we all get slashed. At 4libertyshop.com, we believe in freedom, not fear. So grab your libertarian Halloween gear before the government takes an extra bite out of your wallet. Or your candy. 4libertyshop.com. Let's make Halloween tax-free.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, And we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.